joining us. So me and Becky are going to have a little chat today about our experiences of grief and then our experiences of healing. And I think it's going to be really interesting because Becky and I have experienced different types of loss, and something that I'm really learning is that grief is something so universal, it's so personal, and everyone's experiences of it are so different and unique. And there's so many different types of loss. So I guess Becky and I will explore our experiences of it and in turn see if any of our words resonate or help any other person that's gone through it or will go through it, you know?
Yeah, how have you been doing since your mum passed?
So it's been 3 weeks, and it's really crazy because I had kind of 3 years to, I thought, prepare, and I couldn't believe how still shocked I felt when it happened and how it completely, you know, what's the word? I guess it was like being hit by a truck of emotions. And even though I'd kind of been grieving my mum for a long time because the person she was had been gone for almost 3 years. For the last year and a half, she couldn't speak, she couldn't move. So the person that she was had been gone for a while. But yeah, when the actual loss happened, I was surprised how unprepared I was and how, painful it was. It's the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I don't think maybe we can't prepare for it. Maybe there is no way that our brains can prepare ourselves for that loss, you know?
Yeah, it's like nothing I don't think anyone's ever experienced before, that physical pain. It's like the most primal pain that I've ever personally experienced in my life. Like it was like I was purging every single day for at least 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And so for you to even be here now, like having an open discussion 3 weeks later is incredible.
Yeah. I find that being more open about my experiences and my feelings with myself and others is helping me heal, is helping the emotions flow through me and stopping them from getting stuck, which they have done previously.
Yeah.
And I think as a society, we struggle with talking about grief. So in other cultures, I know, and you might know more about this as well, in other cultures, they celebrate, don't they? They have festivals when someone dies. And they scream and...
They're kind of taught how to grieve in a way as well. Like they have structures in place, and they have quite a long time. Like society doesn't put fixtures on it and like tie little pretty bows around it or anything like that. Like, I mean, we're kind of, somehow it's been completely misconstrued, and we're giving a compartmentalized grief strategy. You know, when I was going through my grieving counseling before I went down the spiritual path, I was living within the 5 parameters of grief, and I just was so perplexed, thinking, how is this? Is this honestly, like, I'm a human speaking to another human, and you're looking at me in the eyes and you're telling me that this is what I have to live by? Like, I can't be trapped in a box grieving in an orderly fashion, and then with absolutely no benchmarks or anything. I mean, there's leaflets, there's conversations that you can have, but there's no benchmarks or guidance at all. And I think that, I mean, that's society, but I think that we also just get quite uncomfortable with uncomfortable conversations. And a lot of the time it's like, well, I don't really know what to say or what to do, so I'm hoping she'll just get better or get over it soon.
That's right.
And move on. So there's a lot of pressure there as well to, you know, not want to bring your friends down or bring other people down. So it can make grief like far more isolating than it ever really needs to be, because ultimately, like, none of us are getting out of here alive. So we really do need to be a lot more open and free and be able to talk about it. And you're right, like having these types of conversations, like I've only been ready to have them in the last sort of 6 months, and I'm still like leaning into it more and more. But it took me 2.5 years to even be able to, you know, for my physiology not to change. When someone said my brother's name, I would still get really angry or frustrated or reactively triggered. I wasn't accepting of it at all. But now I understand the importance. But because I've come so far, I've been able to heal a lot of that stuff that I can not emotionally disconnect, but I can talk because I know it's for a greater good than myself.
And I guess it might help people to understand. So my mum was sick for 3 years. She had a form of dementia called PSP, and she got sick very slowly. But do you want to talk a little bit about your experience, because yours was very different to mine?
Yeah, of course. So it's 3 years ago on Saturday. My younger brother Jack, my only brother, he took his life in Australia. We were living in Australia together, and it was suicide, and he took his life, and obviously like completely unexpected. His friend was the first person to get there, and then myself, and I mean, like, to go through suicide loss, it's just like inexplicably, like, so painful. Yeah, horrific, just like pure horror and terror, I suppose. And it was like that for my family and I for a good, I mean, not to say that it was still obviously horrific, but in that first year, in terms of like physical symptoms and side effects, and you know how it affected our lives and things like that, was just awful for such a long time. Yeah.
When you say those words, and I probably think every person listening, you know, you can even feel a reaction for people that didn't even know you or your family or your brother. You feel that reaction, you know, and you can imagine being in your situation, that intense emotional pain, and it must cause such, when it's sudden, I can only imagine it being chaotic, you know, just chaos, because it's so extreme almost, I can imagine.
It's like, I mean, it completely chaotic, yeah, of course, for sure, but it was almost like the most amount of presence as well, like everything completely stood still. For people like say it's shock, but it's shock, but just time stood completely still for about 6 months. Like, I've never been in such a present state of awareness. But in that moment, obviously, then I remember just really trying to be like a good girl, or like abide by the police and the paramedics and all those people that were there, just because they were the people that were in front of me and in the middle of my brother and I, you know. And I just wanted to just sort of get to him, but I couldn't even walk. I was crawling across the floor to try and get to his house. And just, I think now it's just got to the point where, like, I never knew a human being could endure that much pain.
Yeah.
I never knew that pain existed, where it's like physical, mental, spiritual agony. And so that's why I am doing the things that I'm doing today, is because I'll spend the rest of my life now trying to help people that experience this.
So this is what I think. I literally look up to Becky so much, because, you know, you've experienced this intense, like the most pain that a human probably can withstand, and now you devote your life and you use that pain to guide others. I think that's the most profound and beautiful thing. I actually think it's our purpose as humans. I think we go through these experiences to learn, to heal, and then to guide others that are going to go through the same experiences. So that's what, I mean, tell people what you do now.
Yeah, so now I work with suicide loss survivors. So families, friends, anyone that's in the close circle that's been affected by that, because because the pain that people go through is so severe. It's very difficult for a lot to it's like the main fracture point in someone's life. So there's a very like pivotal moment before and after, and to really get yourself back from that place. And especially when you know, suicide is very contagious within the family and friend circles afterwards. And so we're looking at like a pandemic at the moment of suicides, and especially since the last year with COVID, but also the highest numbers of suicide since World War II. And there's a lot of conventional sort of therapy or hotlines and movements and things like that that are out there, and a lot of Western medicine is kind of heavily relied on, which is a lot of the time it's like passively looking for external resources to help you, and not saying that my way is the right way or anything like that, but really when we're looking at ourselves as like multi-dimensional beings, we're more than just our bodies, you know. We're like, we have our mental, physical, emotional, physical, spiritual bodies as well, and so it's really important to look at all of that when it comes to healing, and then not having like an external resource to just mask the symptoms. The symptoms not the problem. Do you know what I mean? And so now, for me, I was like extremely suicidal after my brother passed away, and I would beg the universe to allow me to feel that, because I needed to understand what it felt like to get to that point, so that I could really understand and then I could move forward. And you know, I got there, and I got very, very, very depressed and very anxious and extremely suicidal ideations, self-harm and suicidal fantasies. But I was grateful for all of it, and then, again, I'm not condoning that, but for me personally, it was just that I needed to get to that point to be able to move away from it and understand. Otherwise, I would feel like nothing I say would be very authentic in that sense. Anyways, but working with suicide loss survivors, yeah, I mean, because when there's so many other people that are taking their lives that have been severely damaged and traumatized by this loss, the suicide rates only continue to climb. And my mission or my vision is to be able to really, really help bring suicide rates down.
That's so incredible. It gives me goosebumps. What an incredible thing to do. I love it.
I look so miserable when I say it though. It's because I'm on camera and I don't like talking on camera.
Oh, it gives me chills, honestly. I just think it's the most inspiring thing. And Becky has been helping me with my healing journey.
You've come so far as well.
Yeah, and you're such a big part of that. And I think something that you really have taught me is that, you know, loss and grief is something that will stay with you. But you've taught me that the love that was shared with that person also stays with you, and it kind of coincides, and they live with one another. And although that physical person is no longer here and that physical relationship has ended, that love that circulated is still very there, and it's still very real. And that's given me so much hope, and, you know, it's given me so much comfort.
When you're charged from the heart anyway, you know, the heart is so much more powerful than the brain. The electromagnetic field of the heart is much more powerful than the brain. So actually, when you're charging an emotion out there with the heart, because we are more than our human bodies, you know, the consciousness survives outside of the physical body. And so imagine, for instance, like you're the physical body, this is how like Bruce Lipton describes it. So your physical body is like the TV set, and then you have the broadcast station, which is like the consciousness. And say, for instance, the TV set no longer works, there's nowhere for the signals to go to from the broadcast station. So the signal's still there, the consciousness and the energy is still there. It's just that now the body or the TV unit can't receive it. But yet you have another TV unit or a body, and then the consciousness or the broadcast station now has something like a frequency match. But when you're actually charging with an emotion, with love, for instance, and you're trying to connect to that consciousness, it's like the law of attraction or intention or just different principles. When you're trying to attract to them like that, it's going to be much more pure and easier for you to be able to connect with them. Whereas if you're sort of emitting really low vibrational emotions, which is what we get when we suffer, you know, we didn't ask for the pain to happen. The pain, no one's getting out of life without experiencing pain. But when we choose to, or don't know how to move from that pain, and then we're sitting with suffering, that ultimately is the choice. But also for us to be able to like receive those signs, synchronicities, and connect with our loved ones, and to actually be like more of a strong co-creator and know that you are as well, and be like this architect of your life and manifest and do all of this sort of stuff. Like, it's really, really, really important for someone who's suffering to move move out of that and actually start to work through their healing. Because what happens is, as you go up these levels of consciousness and you're moving through all of this pain and you're moving through all of this trauma, you're starting to live more from the heart. Your heart becomes more charged, it becomes more open, your bioenergetic field becomes far more expansive, far more open. So you're like this beacon of light. So honestly, like, the world can start to look like a very magical and different place. And your perceptions and everything changed, especially when you start, if you do have an innate knowing that your loved one is still around and you have a desire to connect with them, then the desire to heal should also is kind of, it goes in hand, because you really need to be able to have that high vibration, which is charged the strongest from the heart. You know, like, when we pass over, we no longer have our bodies anymore. So our loved ones are just moving around at the speed of light. You know, like, you look at air, like I said to you before, you can't see the air, or you can't see the energy that's within our atoms and things like that, but it doesn't mean to say that it's not there. It's just invisible in our eyes, but it's still definitely there. So if you want to be able to tap in and connect to them, then our energy needs to become a lot more expansive and a lot more free. And because we've got these human bodies, we're pretty solid, you know, and we're solid as enough as it is anyway, vibrating at such a low frequency. But when we're carrying emotions like despair, pain, hopelessness, powerlessness and things like that, shame even, they're very, 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 very low, heavy emotions. And it's really unfortunate to have to say to someone who's suffering that that's something that you need to work through in order to be able to get the life back that you want. Because, and this is the most incredible thing, you don't actually really have to do anything. Like, I spent most of my time healing and recovering spiritually and emotionally in bed with my eyes closed, meditating, doing breath work and Reiki. I didn't leave my room for the longest time. I put a note on, I made my dad stick a poster on our gate that said "computer says no," as like a loose joke, so that friends knew not to come in the house. But I was just upstairs in like a Zen den trying to connect to spirit.
Oh, wow, I love that. I think that's really important, is being in tune with what you need. So that will tell you what you need to do this, and that comes from our need to fit. I think we sometimes think of grief as something that needs to be solved, like a problem that needs to be solved quickly and to be fixed, and that's where I think problems come in, because then you end up suppressing it. And like you said earlier on, we do it for other people because we don't want to bring other people down. They love us, they want us to be happy again, they want us to be ourselves again, so you're kind of doing that for others, and you don't allow yourself to feel and actually become in tune to what you need. So sometimes you do really need to shut yourself off and find your sanctuary, rather than, some people think, I need to busy myself, and I'm quite bad for that, and I think I've been doing that for the last few years. I'll throw myself into work, and then you burn out, get my head down, and I have to really work against those instincts to slow down, to feel, and to let my grief in. That's how I feel after I have my session with you. I feel like I allow some stuck emotions to really flow through me, and go on.
Yeah, and that's what it is as well. Like, sometimes when we don't realize, like, how do I move through this, you have to think of everything as energy. Like, everything is energy, words, experiences, emotions, every single thing. And what happens is that when we haven't completed a trauma cycle, when we haven't had the tools to be able to learn how to process or to self-regulate, say for instance, so when we're storing all of this within our body, you know, we have holding patterns. So we hold a lot of this trauma in our fascia, in our tissues, in our muscles, in our cells. It alters our brain chemistry and our DNA. So we're holding all of this and storing it. And so later on, when we haven't been able to process that or release it, sometimes we don't even know that we're aware of that we're holding it there, and it can turn into sort of like chronic fatigue or sickness or disease and things like that later down the track if we haven't removed it. So this is why when you do a lot of holistic healing or somatic healing, where you drop into the body, because the trauma isn't stuck in your conscious mind. We're only ever using 5% of our conscious mind. The trauma is predominantly sat within the body. So that's why the first place we should really look is there. And so a lot of the time when we're going through these painful experiences, mainly as a culture, we turn to
I've just finished
the doctor.
work.
you know, after my brother passed away, I only rang my doctor, and I was like, my brother passed away, and I'm having hallucinations, PTSD, blackouts, fainting, blah, blah, blah. I was prescribed 3 different types of medication over the phone before she'd even seen me. And it was like, I haven't got, even with antidepressants, and I was thinking, I'm not suffering with a mental health condition here. Yeah. I'm suffering with something that's normal. Like, every single person, maybe not suicide loss, but we're going to go through emotional turmoil, and surely this doesn't have to be the only path that we go down. But the other thing is as well is, unfortunately, you know, unless we were raised by monks, a lot of the time, you know, we're the generation that are really the chain breakers, because, you know, I knew that when my brother passed away, my toolkit was hopeless. I didn't know how to release this energy. I didn't know, like, that's why self-harm happened. I had no idea what to do with all of this excess energy apart from going for a run. Didn't cut the mustard. And so, or to self-regulate, to self-soothe, boundaries, how to communicate with people, how to say, like, I can't do this, and also to not be able to be honest, and felt like I had to protect my friends rather than just saying what I needed. And so this is, you know, sometimes grief is like this catalyst of your whole identity, and it can be an identity crisis because the world doesn't look how it did anymore, but also you can't catch up with how fast you're having to evolve, very fast, and having to learn quickly on your toes to be able to cope with the new world that's just exposed itself to you, as saying, like, you ain't safe, honey. Do you know what I mean?
It's, yeah, 100%. It's so interesting listening to somebody that's really studied and explored grief, because everything you say resonates with me so deeply, and it makes me feel like I'm not crazy for experiencing those things. And I think anyone else that's experienced grief or loss and listens to that, I hope that that gives it that same comfort, because, you know, it really is comforting. And going back to what you said about the antidepressants, again, it's that kind of, let's numb the emotion, let's not talk about it, let's just numb it so you can just survive. And I went through the same experience with antidepressants, and I know that I definitely got in contact with you because I wanted to learn how to actually deal with grief. I knew that this was going to be with me for the rest of my life. I knew that I would never be the same again, and I wanted to learn how to live with that and embrace it and let that be a part of me. And then once that's a part of me, I know that I can find peace and find that love again from my mum, and then let them both live coinciding with one another. And I think,
oh, sorry. I'm excited.
No, go.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Like, if you're living with so much of that fear or resentment or sadness, loneliness, any of those sort of lower emitting emotions, it's quite hard for you to really recall and call back all of that love and the memories and things, because it's not just the sadness that people repress and that gets relegated, it's also the happy emotions as well. So when we're living in that survival mode, and, you know, especially if you're looping around the experience that you've had when you've, like, lost your mum or my brother, it's really hard to enter into a different dimension or like another feeling space. And so actually what happens is you start to release all of that pain from the body, from my experience. But when you start to release all of this pain from the body, you can't just call it back, like, because the perception of it changes. You know, you've already evolved once you've started to release that. And so what happens is you start to actually make so much more room in your body for the beautiful emotions to come in. And, you know, that's when I started to relive all these beautiful memories of my brother and my dad and holidays and things like that. But they were blocked before. They weren't able to even really come out, because it's almost like there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and the rainbow is the journey and the maze that you have to kind of go over to get to the other end. And it's just about creating that much freedom in your body. And, you know, like attracts like as well. And this is the other thing, like, when you're suffering like that, you know, those emotions that you're emitting, that frequency that you're sending out, it's physics. Like, this is what you're going to keep seeing more of all the time. More being let down, or more being hurt, or more being isolated, and that kind of thing. So, you know, this is thing, like no one is coming to save us in that state and in that space. Like you can have people guide you and facilitate and hold space for you and that kind of thing. You can have a doctor just give you tablets and you can go home, but ultimately, like, it really is our own journey completely.
I love what you said there about like the rainbow, and I think hopefully that message gives people hope, because you know, and it can happen in the early stages of grief, or it can happen even later on when you can't remember those lovely memories, and you can't find any kind of joy or hope in the loss. I hope that what you've just said there gives people hope that you can, if you do the work, if you open yourself up and explore this, you will break down those barriers and you will be able to flood yourself with those memories and those happy times, because our loved ones do genuinely live on for our memories. I always say my memories are my most precious thing, and it's very prominent for me because my mum lost her memory through her condition. So I will never ever take my memory for granted. I hold on to my memories and I find so much joy in them. And sometimes they make me cry my eyes out. You know, sometimes I'll laugh my head off. But being able to immerse myself in those emotions and immerse myself with the feelings that they used to give me, they're still there. They are still very much alive. And that's the place that I want all people to get to. And I think that's a really beautiful place to be.
But look at the ripple effect already. I mean, everything's cause and effect. When you actually do become more self-aware, and when you move through those levels of consciousness and you're doing healing work, if you're doing inner work, basically now look at this conversation that's happening. You know, this conversation wouldn't have happened with me 2 years ago. There's no way, because I was living in complete fear and isolation and all of this sort of stuff. It wouldn't have ever been on the cards. And a lot of people that have suffered, you know, when they use that pain and they turn it into their purpose. I know so countless amounts of people across the world, especially here in Bali, that have left their corporate jobs and their roles, and they've used their experiences and they've learned from them, and they've picked other things up along the way, and now this is the field that they work in. And it's like, it's so inspiring because it's authentic, it's true, and the truth has a ring to it as well, you know. And the people that actually have suffered, okay, for suicide loss, for example, you know, my mates can go and study it until the cows come home, but ultimately the voices that need to be heard are the people that have actually walked that path and have spoken about it, have experienced it. Because especially when it's something that is deemed like genetic or contagious within a family, you know, all of this can be completely reversed and changed. You know, I know for my bloodline now, it's done. Like, this is not a story that's going to live in my life in my lifetime, because this is not going to be something that is going to be turned into my children's reality through a belief because their Uncle Jack did something like that. So, you know, we can heal for ourselves, we can heal for our ancestors, we can heal for our future generations. And, you know, and it's the same with you now. Like, you're charging ahead and using your mum's legacy and your experience to help other people. So the more people that actually do it, oh my God, can you imagine the type of world that we'll be living in?
That's it. That's what I think. I think if having these conversations or writing a post about it resonates and touches just one other person, even if they read it and they feel something that gives them a little bit of comfort for just a moment, or it opens up their passage to talk about it and heal and let others heal, it's like a chain reaction. And I think if we can do that in our short lifetime, then we've done some good in this world, you know. And I got like a bit of a chill when you said about turning pain into purpose. That's powerful. They're powerful words.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely times where I think like I could just go and open like a dog grooming studio or something like that. You know, I sometimes wonder and be like, do I actually work in suicide loss? This is crazy. But anything that I would choose to do with my life other than this would fall short, you know. Like, this is what I mean. Like, for me, I couldn't help my brother in those last moments, but yeah, like I said before, I've spent my life working and and helping as many people as I can now.
And I just adore that. And
As long as you fill your own cup up first, otherwise you're going to be no good to anyone.
Yeah, and that's something that I am learning, and that's a real big lesson for me, and I'm constantly learning that. Actually, that's a constant lesson for me, and something I have to keep myself in check with.
So where do you believe your mum is now?
It's an interesting one, and there was moments when my mum was sick, and I used to think, I want her. This might sound awful, but this is how I used to feel. I want her to pass now, so that she can be restored to who she was, and I can connect with that person and feel her love again. Because when I was helping to care for her in those moments where she was so sick and she was so far away from herself, it was painful for her, and it was very painful for me, and I wanted to feel her love and her connection. And now she's passed, I do honestly feel that. I feel it was almost as soon as she passed, I felt her love encompass me again, and I remembered what it felt like when she was here and she loved me. So I guess in terms of the question of where she is, I feel like she's all around me.
Like she's a part of everything. Yeah.
And guys, if you, I spoke to Becky about this, I was so excited when I watched it. I've actually watched it about 5 times, but there's an incredible Netflix series called Surviving Death. And it's basically talking about what happens when we die and people sharing their experiences. The first episode is about people that died and then came back and what they saw and where they went. And then the next episodes are about connecting and learning how to connect with the loved ones. What did you think about that series?
You know, like, I thought I was going crazy because I've been doing this for 3 years now. So the first 6 months after my brother passed, I saw him, heard him, and I felt him around, like, in cuddles. I've been with friends where furniture was moved when I was back in England, and then seen him, heard him, felt him, and having my face stroked, my hair lifted, being cuddled. And then I went to a spiritual healer, and I was with her for about a year. And then when I was moved to Indonesia, all of my teachers here as well, like energy healing. And so it was kind of like I joined Hogwarts, really. And so I learned how to communicate with my brother, mainly through trance state, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, breath work, and things like that. And so it's got stronger over the years, and now there's like astral projection, embodiment, like telepathy, conversations, feeling him around. Yeah, I know, like, obviously, like through ceremonies, practices, and rituals. So when I watched that series, I was like, oh, I mean, I knew I was on the money anyway, but then when I watched that and then they put it on Netflix, I was like, thank God, because, you know, I've had a few conversations with people where they're like, oh, is that the time? I've got to go wash my hair. I'm like, yeah.
You know, I want to say to people as well, if you have lost someone and you don't feel them around you, or you're looking for these connections and you're not finding them, don't panic. And you can and you will. You've just got to, 1, I think, be ready, and 2, you know, go through the process of opening yourself up to it a little bit more. I don't know if you have anything more to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, like, so when we're living in low life force energy, so for instance, when we're experiencing painful emotions, it drains on our energy field. So our energy field is like 3 feet all around of us, our torus field, or a bioenergetic field. And so all of this has all of our, like, information, experiences, and everything in it. It's like our vortex. But when we're experiencing really painful emotions, it sucks. It becomes very, very, very small, and it becomes very dense. And so
I'm just screen recording on my laptop.
Those emotions are like very low frequency. So for us to be able to be a prime frequency match is really difficult.
Will it just hear the laptop?
And so, you know, after Jack passed,
How do you know?
In my mind, I was like, he's already done he can't do anything else. He's made the most amount of moves he can possibly make. You know? So for me, it's my responsibility. So I'm going to learn how to do it. I didn't know that in order to do it, it meant that I really had to heal all of that trauma and that pain. That as I was, of course, then you're having more life force energy and you become bigger and wider, and it becomes much more easier to tune in.
I'm
and
also hungry.
This isn't something that is like mediums and clairvoyance.
Are you talking about near you as in near
born very tuned in, or perhaps it's a skill that they advance later. But all of us have this, you know.
What, near Pererinan or near Umalas?
You know, I don't hear my brother in audio anymore. But
where did you want to go? Sorry.
Received telepathy from him very, very, very fast. Even if I do like meditative journaling, things like that, or astral projection, or sometimes
comprende. I hear what you're saying. Where do you want to go?
Sometimes when I've done breath work, it's come into my body and started talking, which I'm not that happy about.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh.
But yeah, I mean, like they're definitely skills that anyone can learn, and if you want it. And intention is like the underlying or like main fundamental principle. If your intention is clear and it's pure and you know where you're going, you know, when you're sending an intention out there, and then that has to match to another frequency. If it has all of these other things in the way, like I don't think I'm worth it, or I don't believe I can do it, or I'm not good enough, or I'm this and I'm that. It's very hard for it to kind of barge through all of that. So this is why it's really important we do a lot of that healing work, because we become very focused and strong-minded, and that willpower or the intention is very pure, it's very neat, it's very clean. It's just that to happen, you know, you become a very strong co-creator of your life. You know, you start actually feeling as if the world is like a toy shop.
So incredible. And that's why I think it's a journey. It's a journey, Elf, that you go on. It's a journey, you know, that you go on with that loved one that's gone. It's a journey with the person that's leading you on that journey. So for me, it's you.
That's too much of a big
and I'm so excited to get further down or further through this journey with you. And I hope that just if you are grieving the loss of a loved one, I hope that hearing the things that Becky has said, hearing her experiences and how she's still so connected to her brother, I hope that gives you so much comfort and peace just to know that our loved ones are still around us and there are ways to connect and feel their love. You just have to go on.
This isn't woo-woo stuff either. Like, we're living in an age where science and spirituality are bridging the gap together. You know, you have modern quantum physics science, and then you have ancient spirituality, and the two of them go hand in hand together. And so, you know, they've proven that the consciousness lives on beyond the physical body. Energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only transcend. It can only transform. And so if it can't be created or destroyed, then where does it go? It doesn't. There is no beginning and there is no end. It's just a complete continuation. It's infinite. And so that awareness, that consciousness, all of that is still very much alive. And this isn't something that, you know, you say, oh yeah, I believe in energy. That's like saying I believe in Wednesdays. It's like, that's it. The human body is comprised of 9 systems, and in essence, the last one being an atom, and inside the atom is just pure energy. You know, you can't make anything physical out of us if you tried. And I know that like quantum physics going in with grief might be a bit bizarre, but I ditched my grief books after about 6 months, and then that's when I started getting all the quantum physics books in, because I was more interested in the consciousness and the energy of a human and what happens. Because we literally nothing that we see with our eyes is physical. It's just simply vibrating at different vibrations, different frequencies. And that's like the coolest thing, you know. That's what I found the most healing. And this is why this whole identity thing starts to unravel as well. Because you're like, right, so I'm dealing with death, suicide, grief, but now I've just found out that we don't die.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but it really is for people that are suffering. It really does make you look at the world a lot different. You know, I went from being someone who was begging my dad. I would go into my dad's room and I would be like, Dad, please, 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 can we go? will just do it silently, quietly, like nicely. I just want to go and be with Jack. It doesn't make any sense. I want to be with Jack. And my dad would always say, like, no, Becky boo, like, please just give it a few more months, just give it some time. And I would always say, like, no, I want to go. And then, you know, and I would go into his room and just say, like, you're of Africa's dad, like,
we're spoiled for
die
choice.
before me, and you're going to be with Jack, and I'm going to be left here on my own. Like, anyways, and so the grief books were kind of quite helpful in opening conversation. Grief chats in general are wicked, like in opening that conversation. But for me, it was like physics.
Yeah,
I really got
can't even be asked driving anywhere.
It just saved my life knowing that you can't die. That there's life after life.
Yeah. I think that's what saved me as well, and that's people say how strong I am, and I think that is the sole reason that I am strong.
You don't want to go there, do you?
For that exact reason, that, you know, our loved ones don't go.
Oh wow.
You know, that's for me is the most comforting thing ever. Yeah. And I hope that gives other people comfort just hearing that. And I want to say, if you are struggling, I want you to know that one, you're not alone, but two, there are people that can help you. So listening to these chats, but also, you know, reaching out to someone like Becky, you know, you don't have to suffer. There are so many people that can help you. And people always say that to me, like, I'm here for you. And those words do genuinely mean the world to me. But seeking out people that have gone through it and actually have done, listening to Becky talk about grief, she, you know, the work that Becky's put in is incredible. And you feel very safe. I mean, I personally felt very safe talking to you about grief. I felt like, you know, obviously Becky's in Bali and we speak through Zoom. I felt like when I was having these conversations, your arms were just wrapped around me. And that has given me so much comfort that unfortunately, no matter how much someone can try that hasn't been through it, can't give. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, you've got some cute.
I would also like to say as well, like, if anybody's struggling,
I'm up for that. Just go somewhere.
And you're wondering
really
why,
local. Not local,
fundamental changes aren't being made, and there's not much progress being made when you're having conversations, or perhaps you're like in psychotherapy or something like that, and you're still kind of looping around with the same thoughts and ideas or whatever. I cannot vouch, even just from the beginning of starting to heal.
Yeah,
with
no
meditation.
worries, mate. I'll see you soon. It's gonna get
meditation was like the first thing that really catapulted me in this direction, and that kind of evolved into Reiki energy healing, and then frequency healing, sound healing, and then breath work. Because when we are like 95% of us, we're influenced by our subconscious mind, and only 5% by our conscious mind. So this conversation that we're having right now together is with our conscious mind. So for us to be able to do that in the egoic mind, it's quite hard to make big shifts. And a lot of the pain that we're holding into, it's not stored in our conscious mind, it's stored within the body. And so the body is kind of the place that we want to look to actually start releasing the energy, because by talking, a lot of that energy isn't really getting upheaved and moving anywhere. So we can have a wonderful chat, and then it's great to raise awareness and pair what we're thinking and then open up. And it's definitely a start. But really, when we start doing things with the body and then quieting the mind, that's when we can really start to make big shifts. And that's where your suffering will ultimately change. Suffering will ultimately change when your eyes are closed. Everything is happening with your eyes closed. Everything is happening from the body, and this is where a lot of it is all starting to release. And then your environment and everything on the outside, you've got to think like everything gets written twice. Everything is written first on the inside, and then what you experience on the inside, or what you design on the inside, is now what you experience on the outside. And so our thoughts are so powerful; they create our beliefs, and then that in turn turns into our reality. And so if you don't like what's happening on the outside, then you really need to look on the inside and then go from there. Because I literally cannot vouch for even just meditation. You know, it's free. You can just do it for 20 minutes, half an hour, and just start to train your mind to slowly take a pause and not react to your environment.
that's been huge for me as well, huge. And if you are watching this and you don't know where to start with meditation, one that I've really liked and has really helped me and is free is the Deepak Chopra YouTube. It's on YouTube, free.
21 Day.
Oh yeah, the so abundance one, and now I'm on the gratitude one. And the reason I always say this to people to start with, it's 10 minutes, so you know that you can set aside 10 minutes of your day. 10 minutes is nothing. And it's he really guides you through it. He gives you a mantra to repeat mentally. So if you're new and it's daunting, I think it's a great way to get started, because it's not like you're going to force yourself to sit still and just listen to your breath for 10 minutes, which is really difficult, especially if you're experiencing high stress and anxiety. So I think lovely one, because you've got something to focus on, and it's beautiful, and it gives you a sort of a centering thought for the day. And I love that one.
And when you're doing it first thing in the morning or in the evening as well, that's when you're kind of in the most if you're listening to hypnosis or anything, you're in the most suggestible state. And also when you're in that theta brainwave state as well, this is where you can drop in a lot more, and then you can create a lot more, and then you can hold that vibration throughout your entire sleep when you wake up, or you can hold on to that energy and vibration through the day as well. So they're my two times that I would preferably always meditate. But the thing is with meditation as well is, like, once you start visualizing, daydreaming, picturing, building all your dreams and ideas in your head, anything that you're experiencing on the outside that doesn't match that, you don't go for. So your self-worth and value and esteem, everything starts to rise, because actually how you're envisioning things on the inside is what you're starting to call forward on the outside. So it makes all other things just fall short and fall away.
Yeah, it's magical. It is magic. And I feel like this conversation and all of our conversations, there's just magic. It just feels like magic, and you realise magic is real and it's all around us,
Magic is so real. It's like when we're sleeping, when we're like fast asleep and we think of things as being like coincidences and stuff like that, there's no such thing. Whatever it is that you're seeing around you is what you've called in. And sometimes it's a really hard pill to swallow as well. Everything and every person you meet is a mirror and a reflection. I mean, like, you would never be on, like you're saying, the inspiration that you're having of me, for instance, is only because this is how, for instance, like, I'm not inspired by billionaires because I have no interest in being a billionaire. So they don't bother me. But then in terms of people that have the type of things that I'm into, of course, they're a complete inspiration to me, but only because I have the level and the capacity to be able to cultivate that and to be like them. So that's why I see.
It's amazing. And I think if you want to find this connection and this self-awareness and this light, you have that access to. I hope that's what people are taking from this, that this conversation that Becky and I are having, it isn't something that's far-fetched. It's something that's accessible to everybody if they just sort of take themselves on this journey.
Because grief really does open up that whole journey as well. Grief and suffering, like obviously suicide loss is very complex grief, because there's so much trauma that comes with it. And to get back onto that road of recovery, this opens you up to that whole world of healing, and then it's a rabbit hole really. And once you're on it, you don't go back in a level of awareness or consciousness. You just keep evolving through it the entire time. And so more things start to reveal themselves to you, blocks, patterns, behaviors, old beliefs, all of that kind of thing. And it really does all come hand in hand with grief, because grief and trauma can be a huge wake-up call. And that's like one of my teachers said, there's 3 ways to awakening, which is through surviving trauma, spending time in monasteries, or death itself.
Wow. And
I know for certain that I was definitely sleeping until my brother passed away, and then the world looked completely different to me after that.
Me too.
And it's like the safety blanket of the world completely removed itself as well, and I felt very, very, very unsafe. But it's just like a building project after that. It's like a demolition project. And then it's the evolving.
I love that word, and I think that's so true. And that's exactly what it is. You evolve out of the darkness, and you become. I always think, and I don't know if this isn't the same as everyone. I think I went through that dark time and that painful time to become who I was supposed to become. And I know it's an important part of my journey. And now part of my journey is to have these conversations and to help anyone else going through it and open the door for their healing experience and their evolving, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And that's like, I mean, I'll never really, I don't believe everything happens for a reason because we have free will. And, you know, whether this was like a karma contract or something with my brother and I, or whether this just was free will, I won't know until I see him again. But I do believe that you can make a reason from it, you know. And so for me, I said just the first week after he passed, like, this will never be something that just happened. This will never be a secret. This will never be something that I hide away. This will be the thing that will change. I'll move countries, get rid of my house, my business, like whatever it takes to completely remove the life that I had in that period of time, and then build from there. So that every single thing, like this house that I'm living in, is because of my brother. The job, the clients, everything like that, and then now being able to help other people with suicide loss and prevention, again, is all because of my brother. So he fuels me every single day for that. So, you know, he's never like a millisecond away from my thought, because pretty much everything that I have around me and that I do is because of his passing.
It's so beautiful, it really is.
Yeah, it's good, you know, when people do. I feel constantly inspired by people that use their pain as their purpose, and the world needs more of this than ever.
It's true. That's lovely. That's beautiful. So, guys, we've been talking for like nearly an hour, and I could talk so much. And I've had so many incredible conversations, Becky, that I always think, God, more people need to hear this. So I'm sure we will do it again.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to do it again.
100%.
I'm good. I didn't cry this time as well.
Oh, is there anything else you'd like to say?
I think we've kind of covered everything, and you know, I would love to do it again. And I think that just having these conversations, not just about death and grief, but the afterlife as well, you know, because there's so much hope in that, even for people that perhaps are feeling suicidal too. I don't know if there's like an unconscious belief at that time where they know they're going somewhere in that moment, but you know, that was kind of the one thing that stopped me in my tracks when I was feeling like that at that time, was the uncertainty of where I was going, because I already knew that life existed after life. But I guess that's not really that relevant, but
it's all relevant, for sure. That's for sure.
Cool. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you. And thank you to anyone who watched. This was our first Instagram Live. How crazy.
I know. I've never done an Instagram Live, or I did a YouTube video today and an Instagram Live. I'm like Insta famous now.
Yeah. Watch out, Becky. The influencer's coming.
I'm joking.
But your influence is real. You know, that term gets thrown around nowadays. I think it's quite a funny term. But actually, you are influencing people, and you're influencing some real light and real transformational stuff. So thank you, and keep sharing that. I'm very honoured to, you know, have been touched by that light myself. So thank you.
I'm so proud of you. This is like, you're going to be such like a force, and you already are. But to be here having this conversation 3 weeks, like, you are something else. I mean, it's just, honestly, it's incredible, Ash, and you just keep showing up for yourself all the time, and you're so interested, and you're wanting to move through all this pain, and you're helping other people, and it's honestly, it's mind-blowing. It's really, really, really impressive, because it took me a very long time to get where you are right now.
Thank you. I feel like I'm showing up for myself and I'm showing up for my mum, and I think that's how I'm going to continue her legacy, like you are with Jack, you know.